Yeah, welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore the moments that shape who we have become. Today, I'm joined by Martin Bodek, author, World War II storyteller, and the keepers of powerful legacy. Martin is best known for bringing his grandfather extraordinary World War II survivor stories to life with his book Zaid Wars. Through decades of research and deep personal reflections, Martins has transformed inherited traumas, histories, and resilience into a stories that honors endurance, focus, and human will to be survivor, to be survived. It's really a pleasure having you on the show, Martin.
It's delightful to be here, and thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martin. So, Martin, what were some of those challenges that shape you into who you are today? Good.
But
Say this all.
yeah, particularly focused on the period of World War II, and what shaped me really is my grandfather himself. Whenever I think about why it is exactly that I write and why I enjoy it so much, my grandfather is the starting point, for sure.
Hmm.
He told me a story of World War II survival that was bizarre, outlandish, remarkable. I remember I was 6 or 7 years old, really young, really not an appropriate age to be listening to such highly traumatic stories. But
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, I was like, I have to tell this story. This is a wild story. So the name of this podcast is The Making of Me, and I think my grandfather is the person who made me, who planted the seeds for authorhood and authorship and what I enjoy doing on a constant basis.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. It's really lovely. So tell us a little bit deeper about your relationship with your grandfather growing up.
So my grandfather's story was brutal, absolutely brutal. Six years of hard war, and he served under
Hmm.
four armies, which is the part of the story that's just the mind blower. And my relationship with him was just me and my gentle, softy grandfather. He was just a sweet man, made of the softest stuff you could possibly imagine. And I know for my mom that he was, even as a dad, just the kindest, gentlest, softest human being in the world. And he loved telling stories, and especially these stories.
Hmm.
And took me under his wing, and I just loved hanging with him, walking with him, talking with him. He was a sweet, sweet man, and we had a good relationship. And I've been told that the relationship aspect of the story comes out in the pages of this book. You can see that, my admiration for him and his love for me is evident in the pages.
Oh, amazing, amazing. I think it's the fact that yeah, he actually told you a whole lot of stories that later forged what you are doing today, and it's really amazing. So you have spent 19 years working on Zaid's Wall. Why did these stories take that long to complete?
So, my mother and I sat down with him in 2003. That's when this started. I had a major so we sat down together every, I think, Thursday night for several weeks, and we stopped recording on VHSs, by the way. Some of your viewers may remember what that is. When we realized that he was repeating himself and there was really nothing he was adding to the story, so we realized we've got everything. We've got everything we need. This is everything there is to tell. And the major problem at that time was I wasn't a writer yet. I had not even published my first book. I was just a kid sitting with his grandfather getting his life story. So it had to sit on the shelf for a while. And then in 2010, I started publishing. I put up my first book, and then I put up my second book. And then publishers noticed me, and I signed a few contracts. And then finally, I got to actually be a writer. I don't do it for a living just yet. This is my side hustle, and it just took a while to get the wheels greased to familiarize myself with publishing. But at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I've put out a whole bunch of books, and I think now it might be the appropriate time to bring this book to life. So it was about 16 years after the fact. We dusted off the VHSs from the shelf, and then it took me about 2 years to translate the conversation in Yiddish into English. So that was a whole separate job unto itself. So it sat on the shelf for 16 years. Translation took 2 years. And then I had to start laying out the story that he told me. And when he told the story to us, it was all over the place. It was, just scattered. And I had to set it up on a line to understand what exact events came first and what next after that, like the actual timeline. So sorting that out took a piece of work itself. But once I had that all laid out in a straight line, I had my story, and that entire process took 19 years. Took me very quick to find a publisher. When I queried publishing houses, they were all extremely interested. They had many, many questions, especially about the four armies bit. That was certainly something that was an eye grabber. And I found the publisher, Amsterdam Publishers. They're the largest publisher of Holocaust literature in Europe. And once we partnered with them, we got the ball rolling. And so it was 19 years from starting point to finishing point. So it took a while because I wasn't ready yet. That's the real reason it didn't get off the ground in the first place. So 19 years. Nothing else should ever take me 19 years, I hope.
Wow.
But it's totally worth it because the end product is the beautiful product that I published here.
Yeah, amazing. And thank you, Martis. So what was your interview process like when documenting such intense memory?
So we sat down with him in his living room in his house, and he had these plastic covered sofas, which is interesting, and these old pieces of furniture. And we would just sit there and go, okay, what happened? Start us off from point A. And he'd just go. He'd just go and he'd talk. I remember it was about an hour and a half to 2 hours at a turn. And it was 4 or 5 weeks of this, and he just kept pouring it out. And we realized, my mother and I were sitting there together, that not, as I just described, not everything is in a straight line. He did not tell a straight story. He told it all over the place. But this wasn't the first time that he told me all of this, and I was able to sort everything out and lay it out in linear fashion because I had good memories of every single time he told me these stories in the first place. So we just kept listening. We wound him up. We just turned the key, and he would just go.
Yeah.
And then we figured, just let him go. We don't even have to interfere with any questions. Just keep going, let him go, and we'll sort it out afterwards, which is exactly what we did.
Yeah.
And like I said, once he was, repeating the same stories all over again, we realized, okay, this is everything. We feel lucky that he's this open with us, because many folks who experience something so highly traumatic would not be in a state of mind or in the mood ever to speak of such things. But he did. He was open. We got the story. It was a full story, and we had our transcript.
This is really lovely, being that you're able to kind of sit with him or record a whole lot of the other stuff. And yeah, that must have really been amazing, especially bringing the grandson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your father survived unimaginable conditions. What principle did you head on to during the war?
What principle did I learn from him?
Yeah. What principle did he head to while he was sharing those stories during the course of the war?
So I always say to audiences when I speak, book talks and podcasts like this and so on, have you seen Shawshank Redemption? The movie?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so there's a famous quote from it. The character says, "Get busy living or get busy dying." And I believe it's a sharp quote. It's towards the end of the film, and it's the thesis of my grandfather's life. It really is. He woke up every day, and he was still there, and he got busy with the business of survival every single day. Made the right decisions every single day. You made the right decisions if you survived the war.
Yeah. So
he did manage to do that. And that's basically his operational philosophy of life. Get busy living or get busy dying. Get on with the work because there's survival at hand, survival at play. We have to make it every single day. And that's the driving force of his life, and that is basically his life message. Certainly to me, through the book it carries forth and bleeds through the pages, I believe. You get that breath of life when you read this book, I believe.
Yeah, amazing. So why was avoiding cannibalism such a defining morals line for your grandfather?
That's a great question, and thanks for jumping right into the most troubling and controversial piece of the book. I'm very careful when I talk about this. I talk to all different kinds of audiences, and I bring it to schools as well. And when I bring it to schools, I always ask the administration, the teachers, and the principals, am I allowed to speak of this topic? Is it on the table? Is it safe or not safe? And for teenagers, the answer is no. It's a bit rough. But the older you go on the age scale, the more people would be able to withstand it and understand it. And it was a defining moment. I don't really know why he drew the line right there, right? He was a religious man, but he did not engage in religious practice while he was trying to survive. And he explained to me that the business of survival is so all-consuming that there's just no time for practice of religion. There just isn't. It's survival. There's no time for prayer when I'm trying to survive, right? But this principle. So just to educate your listeners, my grandfather was caught in a Soviet prison camp, and he was enslaved to serve the troops in this camp. And they were besieged by the German army, and at a certain point, their supply lines were cut off. And when the supply lines were cut off, regular food was not available in the kitchen. But what there was plenty of availability of were the bodies of the people that did not survive in this camp due to the hardship. This camp was in the Arctic Circle. My grandfather described it was for several months 21 hours of day, and then for several months 21 hours of night. And he said it snowed there for like 400 days a year. It was impossible and brutal. And what happened was, if a person died, burial was nearly impossible because the ground was frozen tundra. So there was massive availability of such forbidden fare, shall we call it. And even though they ran out of food, and he had a friend of his actually working in the kitchen, he could not. There was something about this that even though his life was on the line and he was literally starving to death along with the thousands of others in this camp, and everyone was partaking of this only until they could get normal food again, my grandfather could not. He simply could not. It was simply a line that he couldn't draw, that he couldn't step over, and he just refused. I think there was a part of him that, even though he wasn't fully practicing his religion, there had to be a line drawn somewhere. You can't just abandon it completely and entirely. So when an opportunity came to stand fast, to hold the line at something, I think this was the something that he couldn't step over the line. And as the story unfolds, his friend in the kitchen tries to convince him to partake because his life is on the line, and he threatens to take away everything from him, including whatever scraps he could find around the place. But he could not convince my grandfather to do it, and a few days later the food came through, the supply lines were recast, and my grandfather survived this episode. But he was actually willing to give up his life for it, which is a phenomenal thing, because he did amazing things to survive and then jeopardized it on principle, which is extraordinary and admirable, frankly.
Yeah.
Because he stood up for something that he believed in and pushed it as far as it could go.
Wow, that was really amazing.
Yeah.
In that at that crossroads, there's a whole lot of things at stake.
Yeah.
It's the fact that the belief actually guided him at that particular moment, and that was really.
Yep. I remember he told me this when I was way too young to understand this. You don't talk to 7-8-year-olds about cannibalism. You really don't. But he did. So he pre-traumatized me, and I think there's some part of me that, not understanding what it was exactly, may have protected me from actual trauma. I don't think I was traumatized by it fully. I think it was because it was a curious thing to me, and then as I got older and as he kept telling the story, it finally gelled in the right places in my brain. So it's just an extraordinary thing to hear. Not many people hear such stories in their lives. It's not something, it's like a typical conversation. This is not what comes up between two people, right? But I heard it firsthand, which is, I think, a unique thing, a very, very unique and interesting thing. So I was privileged to do so. Yeah.
So do you see part of your grandfather reflected in who you are today?
Yeah, there's a part of me. So I'm a marathoner. I'm an ultra marathoner, actually. And I think that there's a part of me that wants to know how far it can be pushed, what I can survive, how harshly I can be tested. And I think because there's a piece of me that admires my grandfather and also just wants to know if he could be pushed as far as he was, how far could I be pushed? How far could I push myself? I am fortunate to not exist under the same circumstances that my grandfather did.
Yeah.
So I try to create an artificial environment where things might be a little bit tough. So I think I appreciate the toughness and seeing how I could push myself. So my willingness to test myself and push boundaries, push physical boundaries, I think is a nod to my grandfather, and is definitely a part of him that's a part of me. Seeing what you got. Yeah. What am I made of? I'd like to know.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. It's the fact that he was strong owing to the circumstance that were present to him. But buying into that too is the fact that yes, over things we're facing today, we can be stronger when we look at that thing in the eye and face it with similar strength. Yeah, it's
Yep.
really amazing. So, Martins, what question do you wish you had asked him while he was still alive?
Oh boy, there were many, many. When I interviewed him, I was 27 or 28 years old. And as I described a few minutes ago, we just let him go, right? And we didn't interrupt him, but I wish that I would have stopped at a few points to understand what were you thinking? What was your thinking process? Because clearly your thinking process was a large part of your survival. You made the right decisions at many key points. Should I go here? Should I go there? Should I eat this? Should I not? Should I sign up for this? Should I sign up for that? Should I protect this person? Should I not? Should I sign up to be part of the Soviet military, or should I just stay here in the what should I be doing? And I didn't really probe at the thought process of this. Like, I really should have asked, what is your decision tree as you go through this? What are you deciding? What are the factors here? And certainly, as we just described with the cannibalism piece that he avoided, thankfully, what was your thought process there? Why were you willing to put your life in question for this principle? What is it specifically? So
Hmm.
the penetrating questions were not asked because I may have been not mature enough to probe that deeply. I think I wanted a large
Yeah, so true.
story, and I didn't want to get in his way of telling it. I opened the tap and it flowed, so I was just eager to
Yeah,
listen and thinking back. I don't regret. There's no regrets in life.
yeah.
You can't block yourself like that because you can't grow. But it's a good question, and the answer is his thought process and everything, his decisions that he made. What were the guts of them? How did it work in his head?
Yeah.
So that's not here in the book, right? His actual thought processes, they're not there, but it's just the story. And the story is enough to appreciate
Amazing.
as a reader of the story.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you on the show, and thank you for putting the top down. It's really amazing. So, Martin, is for my audience who want to reach out to you, who want to connect with you, and who want to get your book. How can they reach out, and where's the best platform?
You can go to my website, martinbodekbooks.com, and everything I'm doing and everything that I'm up to is there, and you can reach me there. You can take a look at my books. You can get freebies. You can have yourself a good time. It's a fun place to browse around, I think. So it's martinbodekbooks.com.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martin. Thank you for preserving and sharing these remarkable stories. It's powerful reminders of endurance, legacy, and purpose, and it truly reflects the making of me. To our listener, you can actually find out, reach out to this, you can find out the link to Zaid Wars in the website or the show notes below. Thank you for tuning into the making of me, and it's really a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show, Martins.
Thrill. It was a thrill speaking with you. You're a gentleman and a kind scholar, and I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martins. And Martins, before we go, there's one last question I tend to ask.
Yes.
If your grandfather were to be here today, what do you think he would say about how you have honored his legacy?
Well, he was what was an interesting piece of his personality is that he never complimented you to your face. He would set high expectations of you, but he would tell others that he's proud of you. That's how he did it, right? He For some reason I never understood it. Like, he never complimented you to your face. He wouldn't do it. He'd be like, "You need to get this done," and then he would go off and go, "Did you see what he did? He was amazing." And then you'd hear from the other person that he complimented you. So he would tell my mother that he's very proud of me, and then my mother would tell me that Zaidi approves of the book. That's actually how that would go down.
I mean, just imagine, being in their days, it's the fact that men were expected to be strong, men were expected to do the hard things, men were expected to. So sometimes I, I feel in the olden days, let's say in some years back, or being that your grandparents lived in this particular age, men were expected to do some hard things. And doing hard things is more like, yeah, that is the normal. What do you expect? And it's the fact that it just reflects that, yes, I think at that point, a whole lot of men does not kind of share their emotional side that very well when it comes to in person. And yeah, it's really
Right.
amazing anyway.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting. It's a good question, and yeah, I think that would That's how it would go down. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martis. Once again, it's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
having
thank you.
me, and cheers and good tidings, and